All righty. Welcome. We are glad you are here today. So we are excited to have you all here to learn more about Generation Hope, FamilyU, and our Student Parent Fellowship Program. We recognize how busy you are as a student parent, and we appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to learn about the application process. We're even more excited that you're interested in applying to be a 2025-2027 Student Parent Fellow. So on this slide, you will see the faces and names of our full FamilyU team, to include our CEO and founder, Nicole Lynn Lewis, and our COO, Reginald Grant. They are not in the session today, but we want you all to be familiar with their faces, as they really are an integral part of the FamilyU program. The FamilyU staff present on that bottom row, including myself, one of the senior higher ed impact managers, and we're often referred to as the FamilyU coaches. So my name is Britt Rhymes, and I coach the University of Houston Clear Lake team, as well as the Harris-Stowe State University team in this cohort. Charlotte Janae, affectionately known as CJ, does not have any institutions in this cohort. And then our third senior higher ed impact manager, Mallory Gamblin, is the coach for UMGC. And so, um, it's great to see so many of our cohort institutions represented here today. And so thank you all for being here. Um, if anyone is at an institution that has not been discussed, such as University of Houston Clear Lake, Harris-Stowe State University, or UMGC, please send us a chat, and we'll work with you privately to confirm your eligibility. So before we go over our agenda for today, today's info session, we want to review a few housekeeping items. So this session is being recorded, and we are going to post it on our website at a later date. So it's going to be open for the remainder of the application period should you want to go back and review it, or if you want to, if you decide that you want to share it or anything like that. So closed captioning function is available. You can use the chat function for your tech support needs or questions, and there will also be time for questions at the end, but feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box through this section. In this session, we're keeping all participants muted, and if you have additional questions beyond what you can share in the Q&A, please join us and reach out to us at that FamilyU email address that we're going to send in the follow-up. We're also going to send you all the link to the recording and any of the resources that we share during this webinar. So on this slide is hopefully a screenshot of what you hopefully see on your screen. And we just want to highlight some of the functions at the bottom so that you can participate as fully as possible. So in the middle, we have four icons, right? So the first one is chat. Again, you'll use this if you're having tech issues or other questions that are not related to the content. You can also use the raise hand function. Generally, you would use this if you have a question and you would like us to unmute so that you can ask it, but while this, tool is available, we want to make sure that with such a large number of participants, we're not unmuting anyone and really utilizing that Q&A function. And so the next function is the Q&A function. And so we'd love for you to ask your questions related to the fellowship and the application process. You can also drop your questions for our fellows there when we get to the panel. Are there any questions on those housekeeping items right now? All righty. Without seeing any questions, we're going to go ahead and move on. So in our info session today, we're going to go over the following things. We will share Generation Hope's mission and story. What is FamilyU, this program we've been talking about, and what is the Student Parent Fellow's role in that program? We'll talk about the fellowship application process, as well as have a Q&A session and panel with some of our current FamilyU fellows. And so that panel discussion is really intended to be the heart of today's session because we want you all to hear directly from them about their experiences being fellows. So now, before we dive into the fellowship experience and the application process, we want to make sure that you have a background of Generation Hope as an organization. And so here's our mission, which is to ensure all student parents have the opportunity to succeed and experience economic mobility by engaging education and policy partners to drive systemic change and providing direct support to teen parents in college as well as their children through holistic two-generation programming. And so the systemic change part of our mission, that is where FamilyU comes in. But, we'll give a little bit more on that in a little. Generation Hope began in March of 2010 when our CEO and founder, Nicole Lynn Lewis, a former teen mother who attended college while raising her infant daughter, decided to put her dream of helping more teen parents beat the odds into motion. So, fueled by this passion, the organization was incorporated in 2010, and we accepted our first class of 7 scholars in 2011. To date, we have provided over $1 million in tuition assistance, supported over 450 teen parents in college and celebrated more than 200 degrees earned through our program. We've also built relationships with 30 plus 2 and 4 year institutions nationwide. And so FamilyU is a comprehensive, customized, evidence-based 2 year capacity building experience. It's really designed to improve student parent success at a college or university. And so, in partnership with institutional staff and student parents, colleges and universities participate in our peer learning convenings and our campus focused coaching sessions. And so, on a day to day level, what this means is that our program supports, we train and talk to college administrators and faculty members who are committed to making their campuses more student parent friendly. As we mentioned, FamilyU is a cohort-based program that includes universities and colleges across the country. So to date, over 20 schools have applied to be a part of our program. And as a community, they go through the 2 year experience. Again, the current 2025-2027 cohort has 3 institutions from across the United States that include Harris Stowe State University, University of Houston Clear Lake, and University of Maryland Global Campus. So to apply for the fellowship, you have to be a student parent at one of these 3 institutions. So this slide says it right here. Student voice is central to everything that we do here at Generation Hope. You all, as student parents, are the experts, and we need you. We need your voice to ensure that we get the work right. The Student Parent Fellow's role was developed as a critical component of the FamilyU cohort because we believe that student parents must be valued members of a college's FamilyU work and work plan and play an integral role in achieving all of the deliverables. And so pictured on this slide are some student parent fellows from our 3rd cohort. So now we're going to go into some of the expectations and the nitty-gritty of what the fellowship is. So we want to emphasize that this is a fellowship, which is very similar to an internship. It is not a scholarship, and you will be expected to do work in order to maintain the fellowship. So let's get into it by highlighting the key responsibilities of the fellowship. Hopefully, may have read this online or whoever suggested you to come to this info session has already discussed some of these with you. If not, we encourage you to look back at the position description before you apply. There's a lot of good information in there. And we're also going to drop the PDF in the chat now. And so after we select fellows, we host a virtual meet and greet so everyone can meet each other and go over logistics for the orientation. All fellows must participate in the in-person fellows orientation and training, which will take place on Wednesday, June 10th, here in Washington, D.C., at our national office. Generation Hope, we will cover your airfare and hotel costs to participate in the orientation, and you will stay in Washington, D.C. until Friday, June 12th to attend a 2-day workshop with the full FamilyU cohort. And throughout your fellowship, you will participate in 4 of these types of workshops, which will require you to travel 4 times, which we will go over in greater detail momentarily. And so it's important to keep in mind that, you have to be able to travel to the various places throughout the United States. In this particular cohort, I believe that the remaining experiences are all here in Washington, D.C. So you have to make sure that, not only can you come, but that you're comfortable, leaving your little ones in the care of trusted folks back home so that you can be fully present at the convening. And we had a question of, Wednesday, June 10th, what are we supposed to do about childcare? That is something that you'll have to take care of on your own, but hopefully the disbursement that we talk about a little bit later will help you provide, care for your children if you need to pay for that. And so, throughout your fellowship, you will participate in 4 of these convenings, which are really workshops that require you to travel, which again we'll go over in more detail later. And so, um, outside of this, most of the fellowship work will be done remotely and or on your campus, depending on your institution's modality. These responsibilities can include things like participating in the monthly coaching sessions, which will be hosted by one of your coaches, which is either myself or Mallory. Meeting with your college's team members regularly to ensure the work plan is being implemented successfully, carrying out tasks related to advancing the needs of student parents on campus based on the work plan that your team has constructed, and serving as the main liaison between student parents on your campus and, decision-making representatives at your school. And last but certainly not least, you will be expected to complete an advocacy project, which we're going to share more about in the next slide. And so each fellow completes a comprehensive advocacy project related to removing barriers for student parent success at your school, which has to be completed by June 2027. Um, there was a question earlier about if you are graduating in May of 2026, if you are eligible for the fellowship, and unfortunately, you are not. So all of our applicants must be graduating beyond the May 2027 date. So, or you can graduate in May and beyond. So you have to be a fully enrolled undergraduate student at one of our 3 institutions in this cohort from June 2026 to June 2027. Now, of course, if you're not taking summer classes, that's fine. But if you're enrolled for, the traditional fall and spring semesters, that's fine. And so back to the advocacy project, it is intended to support and complement the work that is already being done at your institution. So some of the examples can include a research project about student parents at your school, a communications campaign to elevate the visibility of student parents and family friendliness at your institution, or creating a training or workshop series that's focused on student parents. And so on the next slide, we can talk about some more of the expectations and responsibilities of that advocacy project. And so I just shared some general ideas, but here's some samples of real life, advocacy projects. So in no particular order, there's been, one of our fellows in cohort one, Naja, coordinated the collection, creation, and distribution of child activity kits across Montgomery College's three campuses. And Alexis from cohort two established a student parent scholarship. And then one of our fellows, Jana from cohort three, created the Family 411 project, increasing the visibility of student parent on campus and community resources. And so this is just a small list of ideas. And in the panel a little later, you will hear from two of our current fellows about their experiences with their advocacy projects. So the process is that in creating the advocacy project is that a fellow comes up with the idea based on their own strengths, their areas of passion, it may be related to your major or any social justice based activities you're interested in, and in collaboration with the FamilyU team based on what is most needed at the institution. And so during our fellows panel, they'll share more about their projects and how it relates to things that they may be interested in. So here are some of the expectations and responsibilities of the fellows, or excuse me, primarily the benefits. As you'll hear from our fellows, these responsibilities come with significant benefits, that we hope support your personal, professional growth as a student, parent, and an individual. So there is a $20,000 disbursement that you will receive in monthly installments. And that is contingent upon you consistently meeting your monthly fellow requirements and responsibilities. And so part of this funding is truly intended to help you secure childcare, while you're traveling with the FamilyU team, and while you're doing your 10 hours of work a week. So that is not to say that you can't have your kiddos with you whenever you are doing student parent work or fellows project work, but we want to make sure that you have a little bit of extra, money to supplement what, you may be losing in time, right? And so you'll be gone for 2 to 3 nights, for the convenings. And so we want to make sure that you have adequate childcare for, these overnight traveling experiences. Um, and so part of this funding, again, for the disbursement is intended to help with that childcare. And then these are some of the things that you'll receive as a fellow. You'll get a team supervisor to support your student parent work that's already serving on the FamilyU institutional team. You will have a Generation Hope coach to support your student parent work. You will receive customized trainings and professional development throughout the experience, a cohort of peers committed to advocating for student parents, which will be the three fellows that are a part of this cohort experience, and paid travel to participate in convenings through the United States. So I did see a question in the chat where someone asked about when the disbursements are provided. So they are monthly installments that are provided, and they are given after work is complete at the end of every month. And so moving on to some of our important travel dates. This is so important. We're going to keep repeating that fellows are required to travel and be in person with the FamilyU cohort to be eligible for the role. And so we know that you're also a student who may be working full-time, part-time, all of those things. And we want to acknowledge that, travel may require missing some classes or work. So Generation Hope and your campus team, we will make sure to work with you to communicate with your faculty about any absences. On another level, if you're needing support in articulating to a supervisor as to why you're missing work and things like that, we can work on ways to articulate that and help support you in that way. Otherwise, if selected, you will be traveling to Washington, D.C., where Generation Hope has our national office. And so we cover your flight, we cover your hotel, and we cover your meals at the convening. Your disbursement is intended to help you cover any additional experiences related to travel. Again, like childcare, if you eat at the airport, if you're eating at the airport, airport parking, or your transportation in a ride share or a taxi cab to and from the airport or train station or things of that nature. And so for more information on the application process, of course, we're going to go into some additional details now, and you can also follow up in the documents that we send in the email. So, one of the reasons that we're hosting this info session is to ensure that you have all the information to complete the most successful application. So, we're now transitioning our focus onto that application. So, some key things to keep in mind before you go into our application platform, which is SurveyMonkey, to submit your application. They include reading the full fellowship position description, and we're going to drop the link for that again. Confirming your eligibility, which we will focus on in the next slide, and then review the required experiences and abilities to make sure that you feel comfortable that you meet these experiences and abilities. And so if you've done all these things and you're still, feeling you're and you're ready to apply, then you're ready for the next steps. So those next steps include getting your transcript. It doesn't have to be official, but it does need to be uploaded in the preferred format, which is outlined in the actual application. I believe PDFs and PNGs and things of that nature. And then also contact a professional reference to ask if they're able and willing to serve as a reference. And so this person can be a current or former faculty member, a supervisor, a mentor, whether it be at a professional space or any volunteer work that you've done. And generally, it should not be a family member or a friend because we want these to be professional references to show how you show up beyond being the wonderful family person that we know you probably all are. Excuse me. And once you have all of that, you're ready to complete the application and write your responses to our essay question. And so make sure that you double and triple check the eligibility requirements before you apply. And so, you have to be a current undergraduate student parent who is providing regular care to a child or children ages 13 and under in your home while attending college. And so how we define parenting status is pretty broad. That can include being a parent or guardian to any biological, adopted, step, or foster children. And we don't ask for guardianship paperwork and things of that nature. We know that there are extenuating circumstances and parenting status can change from, day to day. But we do we do encourage, the use of integrity in this. And so you also have to be currently enrolled as an undergraduate degree seeking FamilyU institution student, right? So you have to attend one of our three current institutions during the entire 2026-2027 school year. So to the earlier point, if you are graduating in May, congratulations, we're excited for you, but unfortunately, you will not be able to participate in this fellowship. And there was a question about the ages of your children. So at least one of your children has to be under the age of 13. So I'll use myself as an example. My kids have a 10-year age gap. And so when my child is 14, my oldest child is 14. I'll also have a 4-year-old. I would still be eligible because my 4-year-old is under the age of 13. Um, and so hopefully that clarifies that age question there. You can also have adult children if you have adult children that, are either under your care or no longer, need care or things of that nature. And then you also have at least one child under the age of 13. That is fine as well. And you can also follow up with us via email if you have specific questions about the ages of your children at FamilyU@generationhope.org. And so another requirement is that you have to have a GPA of 2.5 or higher. And if the applicant does not meet that criteria, you have to provide a written explanation of no more than 250 words as to why that is. It can be, I just started, I'm a first time in college student, or I'm starting over and I transferred in only one credit or something of that nature, or my credits are, beyond the timeline for me to be able to use them. Whatever the case may be, explain that to us. You also have to be able to devote approximately 40 hours a month to student parent work. For the entirety of the fellowship. And that 40 hours is really, we break it down to about 10 hours a week. And so that can look like participating in all types of activities that your team has for you, participating in panels, going to meetings that you'll be invited to the student leader of student parents, things like that. And so um, I want to go back to the GPA requirement again quickly. So if your GPA is lower than that 2.5, you are still welcome to apply, but you have to provide that context. Once again, all of this is listed on the fellowship position description for your review. And if you have any questions about your specific situation or eligibility, feel free to reach out to us. So the written response section is where we really get to know you better. So take your time in crafting this important part of the application. Don't use AI or ChatGPT or, Grammarly. Pieces that just kind of tweak what you've already written on your own are fine. But we want to really hear your authentic voice. And so you will be asked to provide an essay that addresses this prompt here. It must be a minimum of 750 words, no more than one page. And there are some resources provided to how you sorry, it's not a minimum. It's no more than 750 words. I apologize. Um, and we recommend that you write your responses in a Word document first and then consider having someone review them before you submit them via the SurveyMonkey application. And this is where you can also include your 2.5 GPA explanation if you have less than that. So again, only respond to that particular question if your GPA is less than, or this particular question, provide that written response if your GPA is below that 2.5. Don't worry about it. If you have a 3.0, 2.6, or exactly a 2.5, don't worry about it. So going back to the professional reference part, the application notes that your professional reference will provide us with, another opportunity to really get to know you better. And the way we want to get to know you better for now is really related to your professional skills. So with that in mind, we want you to consider a reference who can talk about your skills in work, volunteer, or an academic setting. So this is why we encourage you to not share a family member or a friend as a reference. We encourage you to consider not asking someone who is on the FamilyU team at your institution as well. So, all the team members will have a chance to weigh in on the candidates, and some will be taking part in the interviews. So, if they know you, they'll already be able to share more about you. So, think about, using someone other than the team members. And this will expand the way that we get to know you by thinking about another reference, that can share more about you in ways that we, may not have access to knowing you. And so, you know what you need to know about the application process. And now you need to schedule some time to complete it by Monday, February 23rd. We will accept applications through 11:59 based on your time zone where your school is located. And so for our students that attend UMGC, we're a little bit flexible with that because although the headquarters is in Maryland, which is in Eastern time zone, we recognize that students may be coming from all over the place. And so, just let us know. But also, let's not wait till the last minute so that we can go ahead and get that submitted. All right, so what's next? After you submit your application, the FamilyU team, we get busy reviewing them, all using a rubric to help us make an informed decision. And so we will select the top 5 applicants. Then we'll share that set of 5 with your campus's FamilyU team. And then they will help us select 3 candidates to interview. If you're selected for an interview, you'll receive an email from us somewhere around March 13th. So some of you may be on spring break. So just, remind yourself to check your email so that you can confirm your participation. It's going to be a pretty quick turnaround from when we email you to when your interview might be. So, interviews are going to take place between March 17th and April 3rd, but they won't occur during your institution's spring break. We've already been working with the interview panel to determine, what those times may be. We will offer only one position for each of our 3FamilyU institutions. And you will receive notice of that in the beginning to the middle of February. Any questions thus far? Um, and another note on that, please double check your spam mail so that you don't miss any important communications from us. Because again, we have a quick turnaround, and if we don't get any word back from you within 48 hours, we're going to have to move on to our next candidates. And so again, if there are any questions, please drop them in the Q&A. Everything that comes in is either being responded to live, or we are typing the answers to you all there in the Q&A, and they will also be included at the conclusion of this info session in our follow-up email. And so again, we're getting ready to transition to our panel. But before we do, we're going to provide another 10 or so seconds in case someone was typing a question in the chat. And, our hope is that any other questions that you may have about the fellowship will be answered by our fellows. And then, please, if they're specific to the fellows experience, please, just hold on for a moment until after our panel. And so, without further ado, we're very excited to introduce you to 2 of our current student parent fellows. Thank you for taking the time to share your experiences and advice with our prospective applicants. We're going to stop sharing our slides so everyone can see you better, and then we'll turn it over to each of you. And so I see that there are some more questions. I'm going to work on, me and Mallory can work on responding to some of those while we go ahead and get started with our chat with our fellows today. And so without further ado, I'm excited to introduce you to 2 of our current student parent fellows. Thank you all for taking the time to share your experiences and advice with our prospective applicants. So we've stopped sharing slides so that we can see you better, and we are going to turn it over to each of you to introduce yourself. And so we can go ahead and start with Heather. You're first on my screen, so Heather can go first, and then Jonetta.
Hi everyone, apologies. I'm not sure what's happening with my camera, otherwise I would be on. But my name is Heather Brandt. I use AS, she, her pronouns. I attend City College of San Francisco. I'm a public health and social justice major, focusing on trauma prevention, recovery, and policy. I am the parent of 3 children. My oldest is 17 and a senior in high school. My middle is 13 and in middle school, and my youngest is 10 and in elementary.
Hi, my name is Janetta Randall. My pronouns are she, her. I currently attend Southern University at New Orleans, and I am this year's Student Parent Fellow for 25-26 year. Currently, my major is Bachelor's in Interdisciplinary Studies with a focus in social science. I do have 2 boys. One is 5, one is 13. I'm sorry, one is 18, getting ready to graduate this year. Um, Pretty much my long-term goals are my next step is to pursue my my master's in counseling and also family counseling. And that's pretty much it.
Wonderful. And so the first question will be just to Heather, and that question will be, how have you been helping to increase awareness about the student parent population at your campus, since becoming a fellow?
Thank you for the question. Since becoming a fellow, I've really been working to center student parents in institutional conversations that are already happening by elevating existent data that we have about our student parents, pushing for further collection of data as needed, and sharing both my lived experience and the lived experience of other parenting students, of course, with consent. Um, as well as needs around policy. And I brought a student parent lens into governance spaces, collaborated with our campus leadership and community partners to help normalize the idea that supporting student parents is a retention and equity strategy, not a special accommodation.
Wonderful, thank you. And so, Janetta, I'll ask you with the kids similar to mine at very different stages in life. Um, how have you, excuse me, fellows are expected to work 10 hours a week, right? So how do you typically fill that time within each week, and then how do you balance it with everything you have? You are muted, sorry. Hold on, Janetta, let me
Am I
unmute your, there you
unmuted?
go.
Okay. Okay, so I pretty much fill that time in. I do balance both motherhood and also being a student parent myself. Usually I spend time connecting with my team members or the staff via email. We usually try to set around time to do like a, whether it's via Zoom or via Google Meet, just to connect with each other, just to make sure we have the same goals with getting things done for our student parents there. I also work on like on my planning and continuing working on my advocacy project, always adding on ideas how to make it better. I pretty much just use a planner throughout my day just to make sure my times are like my meetings aren't overlapping, but it works out.
Got it. Thank you. And so, um, I'll ask this one to you as well, Jonetta. How much work do you do in person versus virtual?
So I would say majority of my work is virtual. For me, this works out because I work from home, plus I'm able to go to school from home and also connect with my team members virtually. However, I feel like when I am able to go in and connect in person, nothing compares to that experience because sometimes it's being hands on with people. It kind of just help us put down those barriers and we're able to kind of really speak our mind and say how we feel and also become in like in on one agreement in regards to like getting things done for student parents. They see the urgency, I guess, when they see your face in person, like how passionate you are about student parents and getting things done for them.
Thank you so much. And so, I think I can also, I'll ask that same question to you, Heather. So, how much work do you do in person versus virtual?
Yeah, I would say it's a healthy mix, honestly. When possible, I do the majority of my work in person as I see that that's where the need is for my community, although it's not impossible to do certain parts of the work virtually or remotely. Most of the stuff that I do virtual or remote are like planning, writing, meetings, which occasionally have flexibility and are not in person, which is essential for myself as a student parent doing this fellowship. And in-person time is typically more so engaging directly with student parents, key meetings, events, convenings. And that also makes those moments feel more purposeful and impactful.
Thank you. So my next question will go to both of you again, but we'll start with Jonetta. So can you tell us about your advocacy project, how you selected your project, and then how does it relate to the work plan? You're muted again.
Okay. At first, when brainstorming, like trying to get like project ideas together, I thought about when I first became a student parent and when I had like a small little baby. So that's how I thought about my project. And then it came on to the idea of what can I know we like a lot of times we go like to different fairs and things like that. We always like something we can take with us. That's how I became to think about the Welcome Kits. And what the Welcome Kids, it's like support for student parents and just making the campus resources easier to understand. But I feel like whenever you give someone something, they feel welcome. Like, so that's how I came about with the Welcome Kits for, which would include the diapers and wipes, and also for the smaller kids, it was like backpacks, pencils, and a tablet, something you can always use. But also when you look back and remember, oh, they have this program, and they thought about me and my children, it makes them feel welcome there. I also feel like just having that, so the parents sometimes don't always know where to go for the resources, but when you open their door with those type of resources, that opens the door for them to feel comfortable to come ask for their help, and they know the resources are available.
Okay, and then so Heather, tell us about your advocacy project and specifically what are you learning from the experience?
Okay, so my advocacy project is Bring Your Kids to Campus Day. It focuses on bringing awareness of the parenting student identity, which can often feel like an invisible one because we don't always have our kids in tow. My hope is to build an understanding of how many student parents we have and serve, who they are, how to best support them in the hopes of creating a cultural shift. Our college works really hard to make sure that our students have access, feel included, find belonging, as well as work to retain them through completion. So I selected this advocacy project based on statewide momentum that was taking place in California, and clear gaps that I was seeing at my college and across the California community college system. And it aligns naturally, both with my lived experiences and realities as a parenting student and my role as a student leader and the needs of our community.
Thank you. So this next question is for you, Jonetta. What has it been like to travel for the convenings? And what do you think someone who's applying for the fellowship should know about traveling for convenings? Any advice that you may have?
I feel traveling for the convenience has been like a meaningful experience. Everything has pretty much been well organized. We're able to connect with different people who all have one goal in mind, and that's just empowering student parents. And it's just always a good experience to see how someone who may have come from a different background than you, how we all have that same goal in mind. We may go about it differently, but everyone here or everyone at those convenings have one goal in mind or one purpose, and it's just to empower student parents and making sure they are heard. The advice I do have is to plan ahead, whether it be childcare, whether it be work. If there's something, try to just plan ahead. So usually like for myself, even though I work from home, when I'm at the convenience, it's about the convenience. I don't bring work with me, so I usually will schedule that time out in advance just to make sure I do have that time to completely focus on whatever this convenience is about, and actually, just focus on that, be able to take those in, then decompress, then I'm back to work. So I definitely say plan ahead, set that time out, and also just plan childcare ahead if you can.
Yeah, and there was a question in the Q&A about childcare. So, for that, the anonymous attendee that asked, if you have a caregiver that's willing to travel, will they be paid or receive a stipend? And the answer to that question is no, they are not paid from Generation Hope. So, part of what you all receive as the disbursement is what would need to go to that. So, if you are traveling with a child or your children and or caregivers, then you would need to take care of their travel as well as their travel, their meals, and things of that nature. With lodging, of course, you have the room available, so especially if it's a relative, they can always, of course, share the room and things like that. But you would need to take care of that. And then also, I wanted to make sure, Johnetta, before we go to Heather, you did get a shout out. Someone noted that they loved your sweatshirt. And I like it
Oh,
as
thank
well. So I
you.
want to
Thank you.
point that out. So,
Thank you.
the next question is for Heather. So, what personal and professional skills are you enhancing through your fellowship?
I just want to say I also love Jonetta sweatshirts, so I'm glad
Thank
that
you.
people noticed that. I would say that through this experience, I am learning how to be strategic and tailored in my advocacy, policy analysis, speaking skills, definitely networking and relationship building, leadership in general, and coalition building, bringing larger groups of people together. And I've really been trying to work on time management. I feel like that's one of the biggest challenges as student parents, at least it is for me, because there's always so much going on and unforeseen things happen, especially when kids get sick. But definitely through the fellowship, I have strengthened my confidence in navigating higher level spaces while staying grounded in community.
Thank you so much. And then I'll ask one more question to each of you. Jonetta, what was or is the biggest obstacle that you've had during your fellowship year?
Mm. I would say like originally when I first came into the fellowship was the biggest challenge or obstacle was like just managing that time, like those meetings. So I feel like once it was a schedule put out there, just kind of just having myself a schedule to know what to go by. The second one was, I would say, just to be like between myself and my institution, it just was getting everyone on board and trying to know that student parents, although they're here, we've been going here, but we are actually here and we need to be supported. So I think those were my two biggest challenges. But as far as the student parents, like being seen and heard, now I can feel like this level of a connection with our staff, and they realize themselves that the students been here all along, but now it's our time to support them. So I feel like those are my two biggest challenges coming on board.
Thank you. And then Heather, our last question for our panel is for you. What advice do you have for someone applying for the fellowship?
Sorry, I realize I'm not unmuted. So the advice that I would give you is to be authentic. You don't have to have everything figured out. You need to be committed, curious, and willing to learn. Um, your lived experience as a student parent is an asset. You are the expert. And this fellowship will help turn that experience into impact.
Thank you so much. And so we'll go ahead and just, be thankful for our panelists, Jonetta and Heather. Thank you all so much. And we can go ahead and unpin them. These last couple of minutes here, I'm going to spend finishing the responses to the Q&A. And so I see on the application you have to be able to attend the orientation. How exactly would this work with school and our kids? Oh, I already verbalized that one. And so that one was basically to reiterate that response. It is, you would need to, figure out care for your children during that time. And then is this need-based financially? Can you explain exactly how much money is dispersed and when would they start and how frequently? And so this is not need-based because it is not a scholarship. It is a fellowship. So you'll be working for the entire year and the monthly disbursements will be provided on a month-to-month basis. And it's following completing your timesheet, submitting work, submitting fellowship requirements and things of that nature. And it's on a monthly basis for the disbursement. And then I did see another one that Matthew did answer, but I want to go a little bit more into depth on those 40 hours. So it's about 10 hours a week, right? 40 hours a month. And let's say you go to a welcome week event. One of the opportunities or experiences that you have been assigned by your team is to attend welcome week and host a table where you're providing student parent resource information. Maybe across the whole weekend you do 15 hours. Well, that's a week and a half, right there. And so you can balance that out with some of the other things that you are doing. And then For this other question here, Brenda, I have worked on completing my undergraduate degree on and off over the years, currently focused on completing within the next 2 years. Our children's age is fixed to a maximum of 13 years. So you have to have at least one child that you are caring for under the age of 13. So I'll use Jonetta because she's my fellow. She has her son that is 18, and then she has her eight-year old, her elementary age child. So you can have children over 13, but there also has to at least be one in your care that is under 13. Um, Ariel, excuse me for the pronunciation, asked, "What's the time frame for getting the project done?" So, as we talked about in the slides earlier, the time frame for the advocacy project is the full year, pretty much, of the fellowship program. And then Samantha, you mentioned you have to go to class. No problem. Thank you so much. And Ariel says, or Ariel, what's the time frame for getting the project done and how will you know that it was done? So we meet monthly, and it's not just a individual, you get the project and then you just go. We meet regularly, monthly at least. Then you have meetings with your institution's, your team supervisor. Then you'll have meetings with your coach as well. And we'll know if it's done because we check in on a regular basis. And if there's any hiccups along the way, we try to make sure that we go over that. We support you through that, and then of course connect you with who you need to be connected with there at your institution. And so that is pretty much all not pretty much, but that is exactly what we have time for today. We are right here at 2 p.m. Eastern. And so, yes, the information to apply is in the chat. The fellow's description is there. Um, and of course, we will be sending a follow-up to everyone that registered today. Um, and we'll stay on for another minute or so for the folks that are asking those questions. But if you have to go, feel free to go ahead and go. And so thank you all so much. Just answering those, questions here. Are the final selections made by the institution after initial pre-screening by your team? No, the final selections are made by our team. So the steps, as we talked about in the presentation, are that you all apply. We will pick the top 5 candidates and give that to each of the institutional teams. They provide us with their top 3 folks that they want to interview, and then institution after institution, and then they we do the interviews with those 3 folks, and then the team will provide feedback, and then we as a team at FamilyU and Generation Hope will come together and make final decisions. And then if you are currently pregnant, do you qualify? Absolutely. However, we want to make sure that we're thinking about where your, due date is, and, taking that time that you'll need to be with baby before and after, and really making sure that you can, commit to the fellowship, having a new baby in the world, which always brings about lots of time that they'll need devoted to them and things like that. And then Ariel, are we allowed to have people outside of the fellowship program to help us, kind of like having or building a team to help? And so, could you clarify a little bit more, Ariel, on what you mean about having people to help you with the actual program? The actual your advocacy project, or helping you with the fellowship, or helping you with your application? And then I also invite you, to, if you want to clarify at another time, you can also email us at FamilyU at Generation Hope. We all have access to that email, and we're writing down the questions and the answers, and we'll make sure that that gets to you as well. So, um,
I
I
might have
think that's
something to
everything.
I might have something to add just to that piece. If I'm interpreting their question the way that I'm interpreting it, I think about like the fellowship project, and getting people like on board to help you there. And I feel like we always talk about building student parent champions. So bringing more people on board and getting other people in the conversation can be really helpful. So like, for example, one of the fellows that I'm coaching, she was doing a community baby shower and she brought in so many people from the community into the conversation. And so that was like, it wasn't just solely her building everything. It was people at her institution. It was people from the community kind of building and working with her, but she was spearheading that. And she was the catalyst for this whole event. So that's kind of it, honestly kind of helps build the connections. And then those are lasting connections that your institution has now that you've done a project like that. So I feel like, Britt, would you say like we kind of encourage people to build that community and make those connections and get help?
Yes, absolutely. So understanding the question better. Yes, that's exactly it. So, those were our last questions, and thank you for clarifying those points, Mallory and Ariel or Ariel. So sorry again, if I'm mispronouncing it, but that is everything. And again, we're going to send out the recording to this session as well as the questions and answers from the chat today. And so, with that, everyone, have a great rest of your day.